I grew up playing all sorts of classic video games. Ever since the age of 4, I grew up with memories of playing on my sister's NES and SNES. I remember growing up through the years of watching games develop from 2 dimensions to 3. It was such a pure time for gaming. Not only were there plenty of consoles to choose from, but each had their own unique experiences to deliver as well. As games evolved visually, so did their developers' abilities to create deeper and more engrossing atmospheres. Sometimes, this allowed their imagination to run wild and create some truly terrifying stories, settings, and characters. In this video, I want to share with you 5 enemies that I picked from video games that I played growing up, and how each one of them impacted my life from the time I could hold a controller till now. It can be viewed as a journey back in time to my earliest naive childhood memories. No matter what direction gaming has gone or will go in the future, these enemies will stick with me forever. Let's get started. I want to start this video off with the earliest enemy in a game that I can remember scaring me as a kid. Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story game on SNES. I know, it's ridiculous, but remember, I was only like 4 or 5 when this was out and I was playing this game. I was born in 1992, and I have very fond memories of loving Toy Story when I was a kid. I loved how the toys all had their own personalities.
Don't let it get to you, Woody.
Let what? I don't, what do you mean? Who?
I know Andy's excited about Buzz, but you know, he'll always have a special place for you.
Yeah, like the attic. All right.
And how there are all sorts of real-life toys in it that I was familiar with, such as Speak and Spell. I had that. Plastic Soldiers. Oh man, I loved those. I used to collect like hundreds of those back in the day. And also action figures and racetracks. In the end, the story is about how the toys love their owner, Andy, just as much as he loves them. And Okay, so there were a lot of creepy things in this movie. I used to have an audiobook of it too, and even when it got to the spider doll thing in the book, I just couldn't deal. I hated it. Anyways, being a child and having an SNES, I saw the game on the shelf at the Blockbuster one day. And when I went to play it at home, I was really off-put, to say the least. Maybe I was just too young to understand what was happening in the game. Or maybe it was just the uncanny way the sprites and backgrounds look. But one thing is for sure, there's something eerie about this game. I understand that the sprites are supposed to look like they were ripped directly from the movie, but something about how everything moves and just feels in this game is just weird to me. I mean, I feel like it would have been better if they just used their own original sprite art, but anyway, I never really got the hang of playing this game, and would just sit and watch my sister play it for hours with her friend, laughing their asses off while playing and seeing Buzz and Woody run around in the food containers. It wasn't until I was like 16 years old that I realized they were just stoned off their asses. So she'd play until she got to the scariest thing I had ever seen in a video game up to that point. Nightmare Buzz Lightyear. Something about him just felt wrong. Why is Buzz attacking me? Why am I attacking him? What's going on? Why is he flying around weirdly like some sort of satanic monster? Why is it so dark? I guess it was just how he looks in this part of the game that creeped me out back then. But he's glowing in the dark, and his face is just creepy looking. Not to mention that Woody has to rip out his cord to hit his best friend. I know this was just supposed to be a nightmare Woody was having in the story, but I didn't know it back then, and to me it just seemed like Buzz was scary looking and attacking me. Of course now I'm 31 years old and it's really silly, but it's still the very first thing that gave me uneasy chills in a game. Other than that, the game is okay, but not great. And just overall weird. Oh yeah, and also, on the Genesis version, there's some weird Wolfenstein FPS part in it. But one thing's for sure, I'll never forget the horror that is Nightmare Buzz. I grew up in a time where 3D graphics and video games were in that weird in-between phase. The idea was there, but the technology just hadn't advanced far enough yet. Anyways, when I played games like Super Mario World or Yoshi's Island on the SNES, 2 dimensions was just the way it was for me. I didn't know anything else. Until the release of the Nintendo 64. At the time of its release in 1996, this console was more than just a gaming system. You see, while there were games that contained 3D graphics at the time on other consoles, Nintendo was the most popular gaming company ever. And when the 64 finally came out in the fall of '96, it was almost every Nintendo kid's dream to own one, thus making it a very popular Christmas item that year. I didn't freak out like that kid, but I was just as excited when on Christmas morning in my very own home, I received the Nintendo 64 as well. And with it came Mario 64. I rushed upstairs to my bedroom, and my father helped me plug it in, and when I switched it on, from the moment Lakitu's camera panned over the landscape of Peach's castle, and Mario popped out of that pipe, I could not believe what I was seeing. It was crazy. Growing up only playing 2D games until this point, this was a sight that I could never even imagine. The most insane part of it for me was being able to walk into the world and explore it in 3 dimensions instead of just side-to-side scrolling. As a child, I always wondered what was beyond and inside that moving parallax background. Now, the whole place was open for a new degree of exploration and discovery. The Mad Piano from Big Boo's Haunt in Super Mario 64. Before we get into the piano itself, let's discuss the stage it's in first. You know how I just said that whole thing about being able to explore an environment in 3D and how awesome it was at the time? Well, how about we explore an entire ghost house in 3D? Not like the ones in Super Mario World weren't spooky at all. This entire stage is my absolute favorite one in the game. It's dark, creepy, atmospheric, and in a way, liminal and hollow. The music gives you this feeling of a group of ghosts watching your every move and breathing down your neck. Oh yeah, and you're only 5 years old. This entire level gave me the creeps, and still kinda does at certain points. The outside skybox is this weird dreamlike nighttime forest skyline, giving you the feeling that this house is just in the middle of nowhere, in the woods, undisturbed. It's, well, for lack of a better term, haunting. There is one room on the ground floor of this house, which contains a nightmare I could never fathom. You open the door and enter this empty room. In a corner, bathed in a splash of pale moonlight, sits a pristine yet ominous piano, and behind it lies a red coin. You approach to collect your prize, when suddenly the piano springs to life with a loud clang of notes as the monster bounced towards you with a maw of razor-sharp teeth. But then, just as suddenly, it stops. Alright, well, time to turn off the game and go outside. Mad Piano has given many Super Mario 64 players nightmares for decades, and continues to be a gag that makes even new players jump to this very day. Even if you are highly familiar with the game, there's a certain amount of dread, which is unshakable, surrounding the Mad Piano. After a few years of playing my Nintendo 64 and experiencing all sorts of amazing titles that would later become classics, in the year 1999, I finally got my hands on a PlayStation. A disc system was new to me, as the only thing that I had been aware of that was a type of disc media were CDs. And these ones were solid black, whereas the normal CDs were reflective. Also, I was used to using cartridges, and if I'm being honest, I was nowhere near mature enough to take care of these things. I remember the very first game that I played for the system, Gex Enter the Gecko. Gex was another character that would cement himself into my psyche for the rest of my life, like Doomslayer and Samus. I loved this game, and looking back on it now, while the controls don't really hold up as well as I remember, it still contains a lot of charm, and I still enjoy his stupid one-liners, as dated and as unfunny as they are.
For me? You shouldn't have. One for me and one for me. Sweet, like candy. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Lolly, 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 get your adverbs here. I need this. I'll take one of those, and some of these. The old 5-finger discount. 3 more and I have the whole set. If this were a video game, I'd be on my way to prison. Charge it! Shaka bra. Shaka bra. We're gonna do a little in progress, baby. Sweet, like candy. One for me and one for me. Need it, need it, need it. That's it. That's a spot. Mine, mine. This is mine. Oh, gimme, gimme, gimme.
And the levels are all themed around movie genres and have their own enemies, textures, and challenges. Now, after playing Super Mario 64 and experiencing Big Boo's haunt, I had a penchant for creepy, haunted house levels. Remember, this was before I had ever played any type of survival horror game like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Scream TV in Gex Enter the Gecko was like Big Boo's haunt on steroids. The music, that dark track is so creepy and brooding, I love it. The fact that, again, we are transported to another dark horror-themed level, but this time, it's much scarier and way creepier. Faces morph out of the walls. Frankenstein zombies chase you around relentlessly. Blood-red specters pursue you through the darkness. Scream TV was freaky and made me nervous anytime I played it. I love it, and to this day, it's one of my favorite video game levels of all time. Now, that being said, nothing in the game is as scary as this shit. Mooshoo Pork. Half man, half cow, half pig. The way this guy chases you around in this confined area and turns to block you off and flank you at times makes it even scarier. The way he moves is unsettling, and his footsteps combined with his laughter creates a soundscape that just makes this whole scene even weirder. You're meant to race him to this switch and flip it before he does in order to electrocute him and defeat him, and this is pretty disturbing as well. This terrifying encounter might have been the first time I'd ever seen such a creepy, horrid, ugly thing in a game actively chasing me down. Granted, he's no xenomorph, but still scary when you're like 7 years old. A lot of times I would have to have my sister come in and beat him for me because I was too afraid to face him. All in all, Mooshoo Pork is an enemy that scared the hell out of me, who I will never forget. As I got older, around the year 2001, my family finally got our first PC. It was set up in the living room, and we all used it, but my sister and I used it the most. Eventually, one of my dad's friends from work lent him a game to have me try out on it. This game was called Unreal. I have to be honest before I go on about this subject much more. I didn't get to play very far into this game. That is because soon after we got our computer, it was infected by a virus called Nimda. Nimda was a computer worm that infected an estimated over 2 million computer systems in the fall of 2001. Once the computer got it, it was bricked, and we had to buy a new one. The game was given back to my dad's friend, and we just never ended up installing it again. Thus, my memory of this game is very, very hazy. But there is one part that stands out clear as day to me. The introduction of the Skaarj. This whole game from the very beginning was creepy and atmospheric to begin with, and one of the darkest games I had ever played up to that point. The sounds of people screaming in the distance that you can't see, that weird automated prison voice, tons of jump scare explosions, and fantastic ambient lighting. Eventually, you make your way to this creepy, dark, empty hallway that is blocked off by both ends. The lights slowly start to turn out, and for a few seconds, you're left standing there, wondering what's gonna happen. All of a sudden, this creature just jumps out at you in the darkness with extreme speed. And I can't lie, I died the first time I encountered the Skaarj. I was so surprised. The entire thing happened so quickly that I barely had enough time to react. After this moment, I don't remember playing it much more, because I probably had to get off of the computer for my parents to use it or something. Also, the whole Nimda virus thing. The Skaarj appearance from Unreal, one of the most intense moments I've ever had in gaming, will certainly never be forgotten. Each character that we have discussed so far in this video has left etchings in my brain for years to come. Each one, in their own way, scared the crap out of me as a child, but left fond memories as an adult. But there is one creature who shook me so hard that to this day, I have a certain amount of anxiety still tied to it. Doom 64, my favorite game of all time. The game that changed my entire life and made me the Doom fanatic I am today. This was the first Doom game I had ever played, and also the most important game ever in my life. To a lot of people, yeah, it's just Doom. But the journey this game led me on has made it so much more for me. The year is 1999. Every Friday, my parents would take me to Blockbuster to rent a video game. That day, there seemed to be nothing left on the shelf that particularly interested me. Until I saw that box. Doom 64's artwork, which includes a satanic demon face resting on top of a pentagram, didn't sit well with my Catholic parents. When I asked my dad if I could try it, he looked down at me with this horrified grimace and said, "That's the one you want?" And I said, "Yep." And we checked it out of the store, and the rest is history. The first thing that I noticed was the amazing title sequence. All these Marines frantically running around these mountains, or so they looked like mountains, fighting all these crazy looking monsters, painting a picture of pure chaos. Then the camera zooms out to reveal the logo, and it was awe-inspiring to me. But once I hit start and was brought to the main menu and heard that first dark ambient track by Aubrey Hodges, I knew this was going to be intense. I started the game, we loaded up into staging area, and here I began my 25-year battle against the forces of hell. The stage's music welled my stomach with such a sharp feeling of fear I had never felt before. The lighting was so colorful, but dark at the same time. And even though the level consisted completely of zombies, or at first I thought, I was terrified. I blasted through them with my shotgun without a second thought, and hopped onto this mysterious lift located down a dark hallway. And even as scared as I was, nothing could prepare me for the terror that I was about to see. As I reached the top of the lift, I saw this giant, pink, muscular monster running at me at speeds I could never imagine. The Pinky Demon from Doom 64. This monster literally made me turn the game off immediately. Those glowing red eyes, that huge mouth full of teeth, those ferocious sharp claws, and those iconic black satanic horns. And when it approached you to bite you, it felt like it was swallowing you whole. And all I ever wanted to do was run the other way. This combined with the dark, terrifying soundtrack, which was also new to me, made me put this game's cartridge in the corner of my room, and I looked upon it as if it were a box of horrors containing every evil in the world. After a while, my curiosity got the best of me, and I ended up playing further into the game. And when I got past the initial horror, the action and the gunplay were so fun that I was addicted and hooked on Doom forever. There are other demon designs in this game that kind of bothered me too. The Caco Demon, for example, is no slouch in terms of eeriness in Doom 64. They took that iconic creepy grin and somehow made it even freakier. The Doom 64 Pinky Demon is the scariest thing that I could ever imagine. Even as an adult, in terms of just hitting all the right notes and getting under my skin. It epitomizes my deepest fears on a subconscious level that I can't even begin to explain. Truly terrifying and utterly soul-wrenching, the Doom 64 Pinky is the scariest enemy I ever faced as a child, and somehow still, low-key, gives me creeps. So there we are. 5 of the scariest enemies from games I remember playing during my childhood. Of course, there are way scarier enemies in other games, but here I'm just looking at it from the innocent eyes of my childhood, and maybe a little bit of nostalgia glasses. Each of these guys shaped my gaming tastes as I grew as a person and stuck out in my mind in their own unique ways. Thank you so much for watching. It was really cool revisiting my past with you guys. Tell me in the comments what enemies and games scared you as a kid. And as always, I'll see you later.